Welcome to the Rural Pastor Podcast with your host, Pastor Andy Addis.
You plant the seeds in the ground, though the fields have long been brown. But Lord, when will your harvest come in? You're giving all you've got to give in the place where you've been sent. But will this labor make much difference in the end? Will no one ever know? Sometimes you feel so all alone. Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, with a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you sow, but it just takes one willing soul to make it known.
One willing soul. Thank you once again, Chosen Road, for that incredible theme music. And we are here talking to you, rural pastor. We want to make sure that you know that you are seen, that you are heard, and that what you do is important. Again, my name is Andy Addis. I pastor here in rural America along with you, but I'm also the rural strategist, the director for the North American Mission Board. And this podcast is designed to hopefully create conversations for you and about you and to encourage you. And today, it's a topic that will stretch you. We're talking about bridging the digital gap. Now, some of you love the technology, and some of you abhor the technology, and most of us are in that squishy middle, somewhere in between. And we have the perfect guest for us today. Pastor Kevin, I would love for you, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do in ministry and a little bit about your family, too, just so we can get a perspective on you real quick. Because this guy, for bridging the digital gap, he has no idea where we're going, but I know he's the perfect guy to respond to these issues.
That's very nice of you to give me such a great introduction, Andy. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah, my name is Kevin Ferstl. I work for Church Forward, which is our Kansas-Nebraska convention here across the two states. I serve as the Director of Communication and Worship. A little bit about me and my background. I have been a worship pastor in the local church for about as long back as I can remember, often serving as many worship leaders do in their local church as also the presumed most technology savvy, as well as the graphic designer, photographer, IT person, sound tech, AV tech, lighting tech, all those kinds of things. So
you know all the things that plug in.
Just enough to be dangerous and not enough to fix it when it breaks inevitably. So living a little bit of both of that. My wife and I, we've lived here in Topeka, Kansas, moved here when we started 3.5 years ago with Church Forward, moving from Wichita, where I've served bivocationally and full-time in ministry. We have 4 awesome kids. In fact, this year we have had an interesting transition because we have 3 of our 4 in 3 different schools. We have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and a 5th grader, and then our youngest, who's 4 and just brings the party.
So your drop-off and pickups are pretty nightmarish at this point.
Yeah, we always joke about in the mornings that I beat about everybody else to the office in the mornings because I have to leave early enough to drop off at least 2 of the 3 because they start so early.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so the background that you just gave us gives away why I wanted you to sit across the desk for me to have this conversation about the digital gap. And it doesn't matter how far down the road you think you are or might have this handle. Like, I come from a pretty high-tech church. We're a video-driven rural multi-site. We're not going to talk about that today because one of those words offends everybody out there. That's the way that works. But we're online. We are queued up. We're using everything. But let me tell you a story about a long time ago. Let me look. 5.5 minutes ago. We're sitting here, and I'm listening to Chosen Road that is doing the intro, and then you just give me this funny look. You thought I was punking you, that we were just sitting in silence. I hadn't turned your headphones on.
Oh, 100%. I've learned to just roll with it, smile through it all, right?
So here's tech savvy Andy, right? Bring all this equipment in. Forgot to turn your headphones on.
yeah. Hey, just be a duck, calm on the surface, but paddling like the Dickens
Paddling like
underneath,
crazy
right?
underneath.
So,
That's right. And that's the way so many of us feel when it comes to technology and ministry. We were called to minister and to preach and not be an IT director. But really, the age that we live in and post-pandemic, we all have to wear a couple of different hats if we're going to be in this ministry together. So let me give you a couple of statistics I'd like you to respond to. Roughly 22% of Americans lack access to broadband technology, broadband access. So that's like super speedy internet, right? Many in rural America are still using satellite, which I'm not dogging it. If you got it, use it, but it's hard to download, I don't know, a YouTube clip.
Yeah, nobody's streaming multiple seasons on Netflix, if anything.
That's right. And now you got to compare that to the fact that only 1.5% of Americans are without high-speed internet. So in urban America, only 1.5% don't have it, but 22% of rural Americans don't even have broadband. That in and of itself seems to be a limiter, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Without a solid internet connection, what are some of the things that you see from your perspective that are automatic obstacles to doing ministry in 2025?
For sure. Proximity is a big thing. It's pretty easy for a senior pastor of a church or whomever they have asked to be in charge of their technology or their social media or things like that. Oftentimes, you think about the proximity to whether it's the people that you serve. So I think of rural settings where often you're drawing from almost a regional, right?
That's such a good point.
A regional point. And people think that, well, that's not going to really apply to anybody. But in fact, it's actually quite the opposite. There's more need in order to draw that because your neighbors might be a mile down the, or 2 miles down the road.
Or across the county line.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think of a lot of our rural pastors that are serving in multiple congregations, right? Even on a single Sunday, they might wake up early and drive and preach an early service at one church because they're just trying to do what they can to help sustain the ministry.
They're circuit riding.
Absolutely.
And boy, here's the dad pun of the day. If they could use the circuits that are available. That we might be able to help them out. But again, there is a problem. Let's just say that there is far less access in rural places than there is in urban places. But what we saw was it didn't matter where you were. Churches that were not using digital tools in 2020, when everything got locked down and shut down, it really, I remember we spent a lot of our time handing out cameras and training pastors with masks on how to turn this on, how to connect this to the internet. Everybody trying to catch up. Well, what if we got ahead of that trend? Why does it actually matter? Let me give you another stat, because even if that's true about rural America, here's another one. Pew Research in 21 said this: 85% of rural adults own a smartphone. So even though there's a divide, 85% of rural adults own a smartphone, and social media is huge in rural communities, but this one won't be a shocker. The number one and undisputed victor of all the platforms is Facebook.
Absolutely.
It's Facebook.
Yep.
With that as a background, Carrie Newhoff said this, that for the first time in history, a church of 50 in rural Kansas, shout out, said Kansas.
All right.
A church of 50 in rural Kansas can reach as many people as a megachurch in Dallas. Now, that's saying a lot, even with that divide. How real is that statement? How encouraged should pastors be to know, I may not have a grip on it, but the potential is there, because that's the world that we live in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would argue that we could really encompass this entire conversation if 100 rural pastors said, "How do I reach people more?" I would give them one word, and that's sustainability. And this is the same kind of issue that we run into with worship leaders or volunteer worship leaders in small churches, whether they're urban or rural, is that you see what's accessible and what's available out there from just a click away, and you think, if I can't do that, why bother?
Wow. Yeah.
Right? And what it comes down to is really just sustainability. And you can get into the weeds on stuff, even algorithmically with Instagram or social or Facebook or any of those platforms. one of the greatest influencing things that you can do to actually even just ensure the people in your church that maybe follow you on Facebook or on Instagram or something like that, that in order for them to see it, it's sustainability, right?
And when you mean sustainability, you mean able to reproduce again and again. Yeah.
Exactly. It's an easy trap to fall into thinking I need to do. Boy, when I see a large, heavily resourced church in in an urban environment, and I see just how much content they're putting out on social media through, I think of Instagram or Facebook, I think of Reels. And right now you've got to do Reels, you've got to do clips, you've got to do stories,
You lost a lot of our audience
I
at
know,
Facebook
right?
because
And
that's just the truth in rural America.
Yeah, and it's absolutely insane. But the system works when you work it, but you've got to find a system that works for you. And that's one of the things that I've tried to encourage when speaking on similar topics to pastors across Kansas and Nebraska, which is figure out what is sustainable. And that's what you do. If that is, that's a real, to turn that around and put the camera back on Church Forward. If you follow us on our social media, we're not posting every day, 2 to 3 times maybe a week, but that's because that's what's sustainable. We're a small staff of either volunteer or part-time, and there's only 4 of us that are full-time on
There you
staff.
go.
So that's the exact kind of scenario. We figured out what model is sustainable for us, and that's what we did.
So what you're saying is, I've heard this in military terms, that it's called mission overreach, that a mission can fail when you overreach and you try and do too much too often with too little. And so when it comes to technology, if I'm interpreting it correctly, the advice is this: yes, use it, but don't reach too far. Don't put yourself out there.
Absolutely. Not all of us are going to be comfortable, just like not all of our pastors would be comfortable leading the music. The same theory.
We would not
applies,
be
right?
comfortable with a lot of us
Well,
leading
that's
the
fair.
music.
I'll let you say that. I've always been the worship guy, so
There's
I'll
something when
let
the
you speak
special
to
just isn't that special.
that. Right? Yeah. Everyone tells themselves silently, "It's okay. The scripture says make a joyful noise,
Yes.
not a pitch perfect note."
And that
right?
he'll
So,
give you the ability to endure. So
Yeah.
just hang on. Hang on. That's right.
Jesus, Lord, sustain us. Right?
So we've set the stage, and we want to talk about the fact that there really are obstacles, but there's really also opportunities. For as little access as there is, having 85% of adults in rural America with a smartphone means they have the portal in their hands for us to do some kingdom work.
Yeah.
That being said, 77% of pastors feel unprepared, or they felt unprepared for what they needed to know technologically when the pandemic hit. Ed Stetzer, I gave away this quote a little bit earlier. He said, "Pastors were called to shepherd, not become IT directors, but the pandemic forced both." And I don't want to keep referring back to that period of time, but that was a seminal event for the church. We saw a lot. It was a great revealer.
Absolutely.
About what we were ready for and what we weren't ready for. Only 36% of small churches had live stream capabilities before 2020. Now, it's not that you're a good church or a bad church if you can live stream. It's not that you're poised for growth if you do live stream. But it is a tool in your tool belt that we need to be able to have, not always to live stream, but to just have the technological ability to stay in touch when things go bad. In a travel-weary world where people are always out, how much energy, and I haven't asked you to prepare for this, so I'm putting you on the spot. How much energy, when you work with pastors in your state convention, would you say needs to be given to developing some skills or learning how to bridge that digital gap? How worthy is the effort to put that in?
Yeah. There's a quote that as I work alongside worship leaders, this is a quote I often I've stole from my local church pastor, and he said, "The Lord provides, but He also expects wisdom and hustle."
Wisdom and hustle.
Wisdom and hustle.
I love that.
I have a sticker on my laptop that I designed for the Church Forward Worship Collective that says "Wisdom and Hustle."
Wisdom and hustle.
And
I love it.
it's an incredibly challenging statement in the fact that we can often pray that God would give us the strength, or He would give us the direction, or give us the vision, but you also got to move, right? And that's I think of another great quote, also from our pastor. He said this last Sunday, and I pulled my phone out in the middle of service.
I knew when you pulled your phone out, it was
Oh
going
my
to get
God,
good.
something was Yeah, I haven't repeated this one nearly as many times as the Wisdom and Hustle quote. So, but it says leaders go first when it's hard and last when it's fun. And leaders do the hard work of leading, right? God has called you to lead your church, and you've got to meet people where they're at. If they're online, that doesn't mean you need to become the end all be all IT professional, but you've got to take a step. Thinking about live streaming, and that is a contextual thing that spreads across urban and rural churches. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I was a full-time worship leader at a local church that was well-resourced in a slightly more urban setting. Yet when that pandemic hit, you know what was on one of my job goals for 2020? By the end of the year, one of my job expectations that I'd written as a goal for 2020 was to have a general understanding of what it would take to put our sermon online.
Oh, goodness. So you were in that category.
We were not online. Yeah, we flipped everything online as well. And the Lord was kind in the fact that the church had the resource, and I was able to reallocate half of my responsibilities in order to get us delivered online. But even with live streaming is a great example. I mean, most churches fumbled through that, and especially in a rural setting, you can't control whether you get high-speed internet or not.
That's right.
It doesn't. Budget actually is completely an irrelevant topic when it comes to getting your service online.
Yeah.
And so it really comes down to what best serves the needs of your church. If your people are online, if your congregation is online, as the statistics point to the fact that 78% of them or something like that is 77. Okay. I was close.
You had it surrounded. Both sides.
Yeah. A little high, a little low. I'll take it somewhere in the middle. But they're spending time online. And so again, I'm going to keep knocking back to the sustainability model. Mm-hmm. Just take a step. If your church is not able to live stream, that's fine. But think about the fact that a lot of people travel. You might be separated by county lines for your people. Weather plays, Kansas is kind of in between somewhere, but I'm reminded of that constantly in the winter in our friends in
Harvest
Nebraska.
Season. Yeah,
absolutely. There's all those, what I would say are legitimate, reasons for missing church on a Sunday, and your shut-ins. Think about your shut-in ministry, right? So what I have seen is a lot of churches flipping because they cannot do and will not do a successful or good job broadcasting while live streaming on a Sunday morning in real time, the announcements, the worship, the sermon, every bit of it, and simply figuring out, okay, well, what can we do well and what serves our congregation? For some, for the church that I'm an interim worship leader at my local church, that is recording the service and putting it online.
Yeah.
After. Right? We can record it and put it online after, and it does not require. We're a set-up, tear-down church that meets in a school.
Yeah.
So we literally are beholden to what the school is going to spend money on.
So you have to set up and tear down more recording equipment.
Exactly.
It's a bigger exertion of effort.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, we want to get to some practical things because many guys are going, okay, I believe you. I want to do this. I just don't know what to do. And we'll get to that in just a second, but I want to combine the two things. You say sustainability, which is, get in the door with what you can do and don't mission overreach. But the other is your hustle. On that, we're a video-driven rural multi-site, real techie. But to do that, like you said, there's no broadband. If you tried to stream where our locations are, you get the spinning beach ball of death every time. And that does not make a good Sunday morning. So we committed in 2006 to doing Saturday night service. Yeah, Saturday nights. I've been doing 2 days of church since 2006. My family grew up that way. My kids did. And we've committed to it as a church. That's the hustle side of it. Yes, you need to learn the technology. And technology will make things easier later.
Absolutely.
Not right now.
Absolutely.
Not right now. You have to put the hustle. You have to be willing to work. This is kingdom stuff. It's not new toys and new tech. It's about tools for the kingdom.
Absolutely. You can't, and that's the thing with live streaming is, as many churches, myself included, in Wichita in that season, what you discovered is there's a lot of things that you can buy your way out of, and you can buy all the fanciest technology and soundboard in the world, but it actually doesn't matter if you don't have an audio engineer that can actually make it sound good online, right? As worship leaders, oh boy, let me tell you, that was the great humbler. You think
To hear that stream.
you think you sound good in a service, and then you go listen to yourself with a like raw microphone output. And boy, let me tell you that
This is
that's it.
This is not a real stat, but I'm going to give it to you because I use it all the time.
Please.
85% of good video is audio.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh my goodness gracious, it is 100%.
So we have
correct.
some things to learn, and we do want to get to practical, but let's reframe the fears. For anybody out there who's like, you may be right, but there ain't no way. I'm scared to death. I don't know how to do this. First of all, Tom Rainer said technology is a tool, not a replacement. Digital spaces extend the ministry of the church into homes and hearts. The streaming that we're talking about is an open door. The reason that I say it's an open door is, yes, getting the sermon out there is great, but what comes after that is community and staying connected and the potential for growth. So there's a lot of real reasons to do this. And I would say before we get into any of the practical things, one of the greatest things I've heard of lately, especially for a pastor who's pushing back saying, I'm just out of it. I can't do this. I can't hardly turn on my phone. I'm still using a flip phone. If you're in that 15% still using a flip phone, look for a digital deacon.
Absolutely, I
You
love
know,
that.
we have deacons of all different kinds. They specialize in this and specialize in that. You may not be officially able to call them a deacon, but you probably have an 11-year-old that could pull this off. You know what I'm talking about? The concept of somebody that serves in the church just for that purpose of bridging that digital gap. Is that a valid bit of advice?
I think that's a great bit of advice. In fact, I mean, that's great leadership advice. I mean, I learned early on in ministry, one of the best pieces of advice, not advices, that I was given was make yourself as irrelevant to the process as possible.
Oh, I love it.
And that's just a fancier, funnier way, or whatever you want to call it, of saying that really our goal as ministry leaders is to raise up and provide opportunity. Now, if you're going to invite 11-year-old to run some of your social media, or even just to, hey, can you hold up a phone and record a baptism?
Yeah.
Right. So even something like that, or take pictures of the Sunday experience. Right.
Yeah.
We might get into more kind of suggestions in those areas, questions to answer in how to leverage social media later when we talk about tools. But that's a great example. But what they do need is framework. They need bumper lanes, like bowling, right? Little kids need bumper lanes right now. Even as adults, I need bumper lanes sometimes. And plus, it's fun to make the ball zigzag as it goes all the way down, and hopefully you hit a pin or two. But
we may cut
it's
that out
important.
for your
yeah,
sake.
that's right. That's fair. That's fair. Whether I'm bowling or golfing, if somewhere I ended 100, I'm happy. So it's good. It's good.
That's great.
But anyway, those are great options. I mean, so really, it's not your job to train up that individual. Actually, in fact, as someone who works alongside a lot of ministry-minded creatives that are simply curious and in some ways concerned about attending their local church and how do I utilize my creativity for the kingdom, right? I talk with a lot of our college campus ministries and get a chance as the worship guy being around and just trying to be encouraging in general. I'm often asked by photographers or graphic designers or people that like video or all those different things. And they say, listen, I feel like God is calling me to some form of ministry, but I don't want to go work for a mega church in Texas, not to knock that. But if I don't want to do that, there's no churches in Kansas and Nebraska, or very few, that would ever have a staffed position.
That's right.
So how do I leverage those two? And that's a question that in 3 years I've been getting asked more and more, that I'm really praying like mad for God to help us find a catalyst point for building a community even around that single topic. So you probably have someone in your local church,
right,
regardless of their age, that God would use in a mighty way because you asked.
But those bumper lanes that you're talking about are so essential, because one of the traps of digital, when you get in the digital space, is that there's always something new, always something better, and you could spend yourself into oblivion without ever mastering what you need to do. So giving yourself those, what are the goals?
Absolutely.
What are we trying to accomplish? And what can we do minimally with good stewardship for the kingdom?
Yeah, that's it.
So let's take some time to just talk about some potentials and what are some things that we could do, and we just want to suggest some places to start. If you're saying, well, where do we begin with this? I would also say this: don't take everything and say try and do all this.
Absolutely,
we need to find one thing.
Sustainability.
Yeah,
that's key. Sustainability.
The one thing.
Just take a step. Just baby steps.
So this is going to seem lame for some of you, but the reality is, if you don't have anything going on and you have a smartphone, what you need is to spend just a little bit of money on a tripod and a decent mic that will plug into your phone and just get that service online via Facebook or YouTube. They're both free, and it's a way for you to begin the process. You can always get better. You can always do more, but that's a beginning.
Absolutely. All of the basic tools you need are to actually translate what you're doing into an online platform. Is built into every single social media app, whether it's recording video, taking pictures, or if you want to try live streaming, right? I was talking with a pastor in Southeast Kansas a few weeks ago, and their live stream they were trying to live stream, but they were having problems with that. And our suggestion was to just pre-record the service and then put it online, an hour after, right? But one of the questions was audio. My phone got me a better camera, but now nobody can hear me, right? And if you're not going through that, so I suggested one of those little wireless mic setups, and so he's double micing it. So he's got a mic for his sound system for the church, but then just a small little lapel, pin mic,
and literally $30 to $100 depending on some quality. You can get a wireless USB mic that plugs right into a smartphone.
Absolutely. You plug into the bottom of the smartphone and you could be 50 feet away at the pulpit, or even if you're just trying to record audio, set your phone on the front row, which most pastors probably already do. They don't have it in their pocket when they're up preaching anyways.
Because remember, 85% of good video is audio.
Absolutely.
So what we're saying is that recording the sermon, putting it online, or even streaming it, is not, if you have a smartphone, you're just a few dollars and a couple moments of effort away from being able to capture
Absolutely. That's the hustle. That's the hustle part of it, right? So it's not that many steps. So give it a try.
Now, this is a hard question because I'm talking to a camera guy, and you love you some cameras.
Oh, man.
I know this about you. But you don't have to have a super high-end camera to pull this off, do you?
Absolutely. The most insulting thing you could ever say to a photographer is, what camera did you take that picture with? Because that actually matters very, very little. Even though I love cameras and I love to nerd out on all sorts of different technology when it comes to that, or even all the way the opposite direction. And I have a real deep love for film as well. However, the best camera is the one that you have with you. It doesn't matter if the person has the skill. It's the eye that and the skill looking through that takes the image, not the camera.
That's frame it. Think about who's watching it. What do they need to see? What do they need to hear? So
you don't need to look up your nose. Don't set it on the pulpit.
Please.
I've seen it.
And no 0.5s either. We don't. If you don't know what that is, don't investigate.
Yeah. If you know what a 0.5 is, you're not listening to this podcast. You just swipe to delete, and you're going to wait for the next one.
That's it. So I said that streaming or getting your services online is the next step is community. And so that's where some great apps and some resources can help in communication. We all know the social media things that you can do, whether you're using Facebook groups or you're communicating via Reels on Instagram, whatever you do there. But there's apps like GroupMe or WhatsApp that are great for disseminating information, for putting prayer news out, for calling the church to action. Are those valid ways? And they're free, from what I understand.
Absolutely.
That you can. The average church is 67 or less people. You don't need to pay for a service that can reach thousands when you could do this for free.
No, that's it. For example, we use WhatsApp, and I know several other state conventions that use that as actually the primary communication tool for their respective ministry areas.
I love it. And how about MailChimp? If you're talking about email distribution, I looked this up. You can have 500 contacts. That's a fairly substantial church.
That's a lot of people.
You can have 500 contacts and still use it for free as a bulk mailing service. And you actually get feedback. You know when they get opened or when they don't, what your response rate is. Again, for communication, services like this don't pay and don't be intimidated. It's step by step. There's a learning curve on everything, but useful.
But don't if you look at MailChimp, That's a great service, but the interesting thing is the data points, and I've seen this in general marketing trends because my background is in advertising, so I like to pay attention to these kinds of things, and they're relevant to know when we're reaching outside culture. But even with MailChimp, don't get sucked into the concern or the void of that it has to be the most polished looking thing, right? You think about you're going to get emails from, Old Navy and Walmart and whatever, and they're all going to be very slick and but the data actually drives, which you're starting to see a shift. I can think of a couple of brands that I follow that when I receive emails, they're actually just text emails, right? But you get all the benefit with MailChimp of knowing what percentage of your people are actually opening it and things like that. And don't get concerned about that too, because for a nonprofit, which we would include churches in that metric, nonprofit open rates on emails is generally like if you would be beating the industry average if you were over like 30%.
Now, everybody hear that. If the first time you do that and you go, only 40% of the people of this, you're killing the
You're
average.
actually crushing the metrics. Yeah, good job.
and also I'd say when it comes to email blasts and using that, shorter is better.
Absolutely.
Big paragraphs, no bullet points, and save it for another email if you can, because that's going to help people not put you in junk and throw you away.
And I know with all these tools, they're great tools to use, but you've got to have something to say. So I would also challenge as another tool is simply just take 30 minutes and think about what are the questions, or ask a few of your church members, what would benefit you? What would you like to hear from the pastor during the week? What would be encouraging to you? How would it serve you, right? And if they don't come up with anything and they can't think of anything, ask ChatGPT. What?
Oh, you have just crossed the line.
I know,
now.
I crossed it entirely. Let me tell you, it is a great resource when it comes to things like that. By
Helping
simply
you
saying,
clarify.
You can tell it. I am a pastor of a small church, and I want to post more times on social media. What are good questions or topics? And I bet it'll spit out something where one or two of them will be helpful.
See, I've already got 2 new podcasts we're going to have to bring you back for. We're going to have to do the AI discussion because that's a big deal. And then we need to have you back just one time to talk about content and making sure that the things that we're putting out, we know what we're preaching, but what are we saying in between the sermons? And I think that would be really good. Just a couple more. We're already longer than we should have been, but this is such a great topic.
This is what happens when you get me on.
We just go
spontaneous.
on and on.
Right.
As far as giving apps, now you may think we're too small, we don't need that, but it's not about whether you can handle it or not. It's about the convenience of people who are wanting to give in ways that they shop and wanting to give in ways that they already spend their dollars. Apps like Tithely, Venmo usually are pretty low cost. Matter of fact, many of them are giving free trials to see if it's something you want to use. And the best part is it's trackable, and you don't have to run all that through a treasurer because they just get reports that are done.
Yeah, that's. I would say do again what's going to serve your people best, and we continually live in. I think of all the places I interact that are cashless now, and so outside of the nagging thing in the back of my head that I remember my dad always telling me, always have $20 on you. I always try to have a $20 bill on me. We have 4 kids, 3 are growing up, and so let me tell you that $20 usually doesn't last well in my wallet. But even with our kids, we do all of that digitally. They've got Apple Watch, an Apple Watch or a phone that they tap to pay if they're going to run in and do something like that. So it's low. The same thing with volunteers. You want to lower the barrier of entry. You want to have a high expectation, but you want to make it easy and have a system in place to pick up their yes, right? So
yeah, and we don't know how many dollars of people that they wanted to give, they wanted to serve, they wanted to support, but they didn't have that mode or function of payment because we didn't have it as an opportunity.
Here's a great example. I had a conversation last week with the club car wash person that scanned my car when I went in because they have a tip jar for all of their people, and it has been crazy hot in Kansas. And when I go through it after driving on the road and my car is covered in bugs and I go through that and I see those poor young guys and gals out there spraying my car down, I'm thankful for them. But the only thing that they have is a box to put cash in. So I started asking them every time I go in, because I don't use the little pass thing to go fast through. I like to have my door open for them to scan it
the side,
because
yeah.
it gives me an interaction with
Yeah,
them.
that's right.
Right? And so it's a great opportunity
Plus, that's
to just
the
try
only way
to
you can get an air freshener.
absolutely, and less things on my windshield, right? That's great. But that's even something. So I mean, there's just a really practical non-ministry thing that I would tip them if they had a digital alternative.
And I wonder how many people sitting in your pews have had the similar thought, oh, I'd like to support this. I'd like to give this, but I don't carry cash. It's interesting.
It is.
It is. And I know you have the arguments, well, you should. Well, maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. But you can either be right or you can be effective.
Absolutely.
and
Dave Ramsey says a lot of great things, but not everything is perfect. Right?
That's right. That's right. Okay, so if you have some more to throw in here, let me just give you a couple more real quick. If you're a nonprofit, Canva is free. It's most of the teachers in your congregation know how to use this. If somebody in your church owns a Cricut, they know how to use this. And you can create posters, sermon graphics, announcements. It'll even do social posts for you. I know for a fact that Google has a program where, as a nonprofit, they will give you a domain name, 100 gigs of email space per address, all kinds of things that we can utilize for ministry and create even an environment for your church, a chat environment for them. And then this one is the one that just kills me. If you don't know how to do any of this, you are one YouTube video away from it. My sons really grew up with a loss because if you ever see me on the side of the road with the hood up, you know what I'm doing? Nothing. Yep, there's an engine. That's what it is. I had
well,
no
there
idea.
it is. Yeah, still there.
3 days ago, my son Nathan didn't call me, called his mom, said, pray for us. Lost the alternator in their car while they were out of town.
Oh, man.
Watched a YouTube video, bought an alternator, and I'm like, I don't get that at all. Because we never did that. But everything you need to know about
Absolutely.
doing things is available as a free video somewhere out there, and YouTube's a great source.
Well, here's a great thing to think about. Think about how many times you and your local church, as a local church ministry leader, might have asked yourself the simple question: how do I reach people that have grown up in broken homes? Right? That's a constant source of conversation topic, and that's a way bigger conversation topic that we've had with our kids than my parents had to have with me growing up.
Yeah.
And so think of it that way, that there's the problem, right? And there was one dad out there who saw the problem, that there are a bunch of kids growing up without a dad to teach them basic things. You made me think of this because you mentioned car stuff.
Yep.
But he started, and I'm trying to remember the exact name of his YouTube channel. I'll search it out, and you can throw it in the comments or something
That'd be
down
great.
below. But it's like the Digital Dad or something like that. And he started a YouTube channel by setting up his iPhone on a cheap little tripod. He probably bought at Walmart or Amazon or something like that. And he started teaching kids this is how you would fix a sink. This is how he tried to think of everything that his dad taught him, that he tried to teach his kids. And this is just it's a grown grandfather aged man but the
content is what's important.
Absolutely. Yeah. It has reached so many people, and that very well could have been the video that Nathan watched to learn how to change the alternator. How funny would that be? That would be poetic. But
it makes me feel a little shame. But
the other thing I did want to circle back to real quick is you mentioned the nonprofit pricing that Canva and other places. That is a gold gem in the middle of the rest of the ideas too, because if you see something or someone suggests something to you and you look it up and you're like, oh, that's way too expensive, unless you see something about nonprofit pricing, send them an email. Most businesses
that's so good.
Rarely, and in fact, some just kind of hide it because they're willing to do it, but they don't want to
advertise.
They don't want to advertise
That's
it,
right.
right? So it is every time. I will not subscribe to a single thing without asking if they have a nonprofit pricing, and most will do it. And if you're a registered 501c3, then you're riding a gravy train to nonprofit town, pricing town, I guess.
Boy, that is the weakest gravy you'd ever got, but it's gravy.
Yeah.
It's
and
gravy.
on that bombshell.
Kevin, thank you so much. This has been a very practical, super helpful. I hope that what's happened is that there have been many who have been challenged to get past that digital gap and to realize that it's not beyond their abilities, that there is a use of the technology for the kingdom that no matter where they're from, they can jump into.
Absolutely. Figure out what works, what answers the questions for your congregation, and then just make it sustainable.
Yeah. And hustle.
Absolute wisdom and hustle, baby.
Wisdom and hustle. What a great opportunity. Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us. It is absolutely a privilege to be with you, and we can't wait to get back with you. Danny will be in the studio with us again real soon. Have a great time. We'll see you again on The Rural Pastor.
Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town with a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you sow, but it just takes one willing soul to make him known.
Thank you for joining us on the Rural Pastor Podcast. Special thanks to Chosen Road for our incredible theme music and to 180 Digital for their corporate sponsorship and making all the technical things possible. Rural Church Leader, we want to remind you that your work is important, that you are important, and that you are not alone. See you again soon for another edition of the Rural Pastor Podcast.